After getting out of jail, a thief discovers that he has become the laughing stock of the residents of his town and decides to give up the life of crime. Now his challenge will be to find a profession that can make him rich. Today we're going to recap the first season of the series, Zootopia Plus, from 2022. As she says goodbye to her parents, Judy, a young rabbit who is going to try life in the big city, tries to reassure them, as she knows they are very worried about what might happen, since the girl has lived all her life in the countryside. However, Judy has prepared herself for several years to be able to take advantage of this opportunity, so she's not willing to let it pass her by. When the train arrives at the station, the young rabbit hugs her parents and runs into the carriage, heading for a new life. At this point, the couple look for their youngest daughter to leave, but then realize that Molly has ended up on top of the train and is traveling with her sister. Immediately, Bonnie and Stuart get into their truck to go after the vehicle, but the key ends up falling into the manhole. Desperate to rescue her daughter, Bonnie uses the knowledge she has acquired from the movies to start the car without the key and hits the road. Meanwhile, Molly manages to get into the carriage and walks around the train looking for Judy, who has no idea that her sister is in there. On the way, Bonnie has to calm her husband down while driving, as Stuart is suffering from an anxiety attack. While trying to find her cell phone to call Judy, Bonnie almost causes an accident, but Stuart manages to save them and they both end up in the middle of the forest. When the rabbit couple finally manage to get close to the moving train, Stuart tries to climb aboard and his wife has to stop the truck because she realizes there's a tunnel ahead. After almost being pushed off a moving train, Stuart celebrates the fact that he is still alive and continues his mission while Bonnie speeds up the vehicle to catch up with him. While facing intense weather changes, the rabbit tries to get his daughter's attention, but Judy is wearing headphones and can't hear him. Suddenly, Stuart is hit by an umbrella and ends up falling off the train, but luckily Bonnie manages to catch him and the two continue on together until they reach Zootopia. When the train stops, Judy gets off the carriage and goes on her way while Molly tries to catch up with her. However, the little girl can't get her sister's attention and accidentally ends up being pushed onto the train tracks. At that moment, Stuart uses the hood of his car as a board to slide across the city to meet his daughter. Luckily, he manages to reach her before Molly falls onto the tracks. Just as they were about to be run over by the train, Bonnie appeared and pulled them back into the station. Relieved, the couple hug their daughter and kiss to celebrate the success of the mission. Just then, Molly gets on another train and her parents prepare to go after her again. Months later, in Zootopia, Frou Frou is proposed to and happily celebrates with her friends in her mini-mansion. Her first challenge is to choose her maid of honor. The contest is between Bianca, Christine, Charisma and Mandy. All these girls are her childhood friends and are willing to duel for the position of Frou Frou's maid of honor. Until then, everything indicates that the competition will be fierce, but with the arrival of True True, the bride's cousin, the competition starts to become unbalanced. As children, True True and Frou Frou were very close and considered each other best friends, but when they grew up, they grew apart. Over time, this estrangement has turned into a feud. However, despite not being close to her cousin, Frou Frou feels obliged to invite her to her wedding, since when they were younger, she promised that True True would be her maid of honor. Furious, the bride's friends begin to create an enmity against True True, but the rodent isn't worried about making a good impression. Her main goal is to have a say in every detail of the wedding, including the decorations and the guests who will be attending the party. On the very first day, it becomes clear why Frou Frou has stayed away from her cousin, because the mouse is extremely controlling. In an attempt to get rid of True True, the bride sneaks off with her friends to try on dresses from her favorite store. But even so, Frou Frou can't get rid of her, because her cousin manages to find her and takes the whole film crew to record this important moment. Seeing True True trying to choose her dress, the bride loses patience and says she doesn't want her cousin's help in organizing the wedding. During the argument, the mouse doesn't mince words when it comes to offending Frou Frou and starts talking badly about her hair. At this point, the bride becomes enraged and attacks her cousin aggressively, oblivious to the presence of the cameras. While the other rodents watch the duel, the polar bears working as bodyguards have to break up the fight and True True decides to leave. Now that she no longer has her controlling cousin to meddle in her life, Frou Frou decides to go shopping to relax and, while crossing the street, is almost crushed by a giant donut. However, before the rodent is hit, Judy shows up to save her, but Frou Frou is traumatized by the accident that almost took her life. From that day on, she realizes that she needs to change her behavior and decides to go and make up with her cousin. After apologizing, the bride discovers that True True has gone there to deliver the wedding dress that Frou Frou's late mother wore on her big day. Overcome with emotion, the cousins hug and decide to resume their friendship. That day, True True ends up being chosen to be the maid of honor. As her cousin hasn't arranged the bouquet yet, the mouse orders a bunch of howling flowers. After the ceremony, the bride throws the bouquet and, in trying to catch it, her bridesmaids end up being affected by the scent of those flowers. Due to the aggressive effect generated by that plant, they become wild and attack all the guests at the party. However, thanks to the polar bears, the celebration continues and the bride's father decides to make a speech to honor her. At this point, Mr. Big says he feels very fulfilled to see his daughter happy, surrounded by friends and family. According to the mouse, when he and his grandmother left their homeland in the year 1920, they had to face great storms while crossing a lake to get to Zootopia. At that time, the little rodents were not treated with dignity, as they had to fight to survive in a city ruled by giants. Even so, Mr. Big and his grandmother managed to build their first house and started working to set up a bakery. After helping her cook, Mr. Big went out into the city streets to make deliveries and was almost run over several times. As well as worrying about the vehicles, the mouse had to be very careful not to be trampled by the other animals and was often unable to complete his deliveries. Concerned about her grandson's safety, the elderly woman got him a bicycle so that he could make deliveries more easily, and so the little guy was able to get around the city quickly. Little by little, the bakery began to grow and they managed to raise a lot of money. Thanks to his generosity, Mr. Big managed to make new friends and his community grew more and more. One day, however, a group of criminals broke into the bakery and stole all the money it had taken him and his grandmother months to collect. Seeing his bear friend being attacked by the rhino, Mr. Big decided to confront him and managed to distract the criminals so that the cub had a chance to escape. The mouse then enlisted the help of all the members of his community to get rid of Rhino and, after the attack, the man ended up inside an ice factory. After this act of bravery, his life was never the same again, as he became brave enough to face all the challenges he encountered. With the help of his new friends, Mr. Big managed to bring all the members of his family to Zootopia and, together, they prospered. Because of the mouse's success, his entire community flourished, as he provided jobs for the needy and built a city within Zootopia to house the little rodents. Thanks to all the efforts of their ancestors, the mice were able to get together that evening to attend Frou-Frou's wedding. So Mr. Big makes this speech to congratulate his daughter on having decided to build her own family, because that is the greatest treasure there is. After getting out of prison for the third time in a month, Duke says goodbye to Francine and the policewoman advises him to get his life together, as the weasel is often sent to the police station. However, as he is arrested for petty theft, Duke always manages to get away with it and is furious when he discovers that the local newspaper recorded the exact moment when Judy managed to trap him with a giant donut. When he realizes that everyone thinks he's a joke, the weasel feels humiliated because he can't stand the idea of being ridiculed in public. Seeing people laughing at the video, Duke is embarrassed and runs to hide in a dark alley. While reflecting on his mediocre life, the thief realizes that the other animals are right and feels like a loser. As a child, he always had big dreams, but he never made the effort to fulfill them and ended up taking the easy way out. However, now he wants to become a good person and no longer wants to be a thief. His current goal is to find a vocation. As he's still a bit lost, Duke thinks about maybe becoming a mechanic to make a lot of money fixing cars. Another option is to become a lawyer to help all the people who have been unjustly imprisoned. However, as the animal has never done well with the law, he is thinking of investing in a career as a doctor or writer. Basically, any job that has the potential to bring in a lot of money, Duke is willing to do, because his main goal is to become a rich and successful guy. When he sees an old lady lose her wallet while crossing the street, the weasel decides to go after her to return her money, having decided that he will never again ride roughshod over anyone to get by. However, before he can return the wallet, the old woman ends up being run over and Duke realizes that the truck that hit her is full of money. At this point, the thief can't resist his instincts and steals one of those bags of money, but ends up being chased by the police once again. While watching Zootopia's biggest talent show, police officer Benjamin Clawhauser discovers that he will have the chance to become a dancer for Gazelle, his favorite judge. To do this, Benjamin needs to find a partner who will agree to take part in the contest with him, and he enlists the help of Chief Bogo to carry out a special mission. Without knowing what the mission is about, the bull decides to show up at the agreed location and Benjamin has to lie to convince him to take part in the show. The leopard says that they are there to escort Gazelle and make sure that no fans try to get close to her. Believing his partner's words, Bogo agrees to wear a dancer's costume as a disguise to blend in with the other participants. When it's his turn to perform, Benjamin decides to tell his boss the truth and says he's there to audition. The policeman reveals that he had always dreamed of becoming Gazelle's dancer, and that's why he had to lie to get a duo, because he knew that his boss would never agree to take part if he knew the truth from the start. Discovering that he has been tricked, Bogo refuses to go on stage and Benjamin ends up embarrassing himself in front of the judges, as they forbid him to take the test alone. When he realizes that the leopard will fail, Bogo decides to join him and impresses the judges with his triumphant entrance. Attached to the ceiling by a cable, the bull begins to fly with his partner and, even in improvisation, the pair put on a beautiful performance that left the judges impressed. Thanks to their teamwork, the policemen become the winners of the competition and are chosen by Gazelle to be part of her dance group. Suddenly, Benjamin wakes up and realizes that it was all just a dream, as he fell asleep while watching the talent show. Just then, the leopard receives a call to come to his boss's office and, when he gets there, he discovers that Bogo was also watching the dance contest. Despite his serious and intimidating appearance, the bull is a big fan of Gazelle, and knowing this makes Benjamin hope to convince him to take part in the next contest. During the week, Sam works in one of the most famous restaurants in Zootopia and has to serve the dishes prepared by Gerald, the chef. However, on that day, she informs him that she will have to leave work early, as she has spent months saving money to buy a ticket for Gazelle's concert. Despite being new to the job, Sam does her best to please the customers and ends up becoming the restaurant's favorite waitress. After serving all the tables, the young woman prepares to leave the restaurant, as she is anxious to get to the show. Just then, a couple of sloths arrive at the restaurant and Sam sees her dream crumble before her eyes. If she doesn't hurry to meet them, she won't make it to the show on time. The problem is that Arrow and Priscilla are extremely slow, so Sam decides to take the table to them. In an attempt to speed up the service, Sam tries to make some suggestions for dishes, but the couple prefers to look at the whole menu. While waiting for the sloths to place their orders, the waitress delays serving the other tables and ends up losing patience as all the customers start calling her at the same time. At that moment, she picks up the bottle of sparkling wine in Arrow's hands and decides to open it to speed up the process. But the cork ends up flying all over the restaurant and hitting the other customers. When Sam finally manages to catch it, it's too late, as the animals gather to complain about her care. However, the discussion is interrupted when they witness Arrow's beautiful marriage proposal and are thrilled to see Priscilla become a bride. At this point, Sam feels bad for having tried to rush her service on such an important night for that couple and decides to take as much time as she needs to serve all the customers before going to the show. To her surprise, Arrow and Priscilla reveal that they are also going to Gazelle's show and Sam manages to hitch a ride with them. Ironically, when they get into the car, the sloths drive at high speed, to the point of being stopped by traffic wardens. Sam then discovers that all the couple's slowness is compensated for when they are in the vehicle and decides to walk to the show. Norman is a guinea pig who keeps snooping into the lives of the people who live in his building. For him, family dramas are like reality shows, but the program he likes best is Mexican soap operas. One day, when he sees Harold poisoning his wife's tea in order to get her inheritance from her father, the rodent decides to intervene. Before Marilyn is poisoned, Norman uses a straw to throw a paper ball into the criminal's hand and drops the cup on the floor. Then the guinea pig manages to knock him down and, seeing the glass of poison fall out of Harold's pocket, Marilyn realizes that her husband is trying to eliminate her. At that moment, the man chases her, but Norman bites the power cables and turns off the lights, causing him to fall on Marilyn's cat. While the feline attacks Harold, Norman ties his feet together with the cable and then drops the lamp on the man's head. After the attack, the man lights a cigarette lighter to find the guinea pig that is trying to disrupt his plans, but he gets hurt when Norman turns on the gas on the stove and Harold ends up being hit by an explosion. Minutes later, the police show up and Norman proudly watches the villain of his favorite soap opera being arrested. A few blocks away, Johnny, a gorilla pianist, shows off his talents to Mrs. Kiki. Listening to that song, she remembers the time when she used to go to the dances with her friends and regrets the fact that she doesn't have a boyfriend. Johnny then decides to create a profile for Mrs. Kiki on a dating site and, quickly, several suitors appear. However, after a few unsuccessful encounters, the elderly woman begins to doubt love and comes to believe that she will never be able to experience romance again. One night, while walking down the street after another of her disastrous dates, she has an accident and loses her glass eye. While trying to catch it, Mrs. Kiki meets a kind lizard who unassumingly invites her to take a moon bath. At that moment, while enjoying the beautiful view of the ocean, Mrs. Kiki realizes that perhaps there is still room for love in her life. In the city of sausages, while some young people are having fun in the swimming pool, Timmy gets scared of jumping off the trampoline and ends up being teased by his friends. Embarrassed, the young boy sits on the edge of a lake and, noticing that the boy is sad, the mayor approaches him to try to cheer him up. When he notices that Timmy is feeling intimidated by being shorter than his friends, the mayor decides to take him for a walk around town. During the tour, his goal is to help Timmy understand that, despite being a sausage like everyone else, each individual has their own particularities and no sausage is the same as another. At the end of the day, the mayor succeeds in his goal, because Timmy stops feeling bad about his small size and understands that, despite this, he is just as special as his colleagues. At that moment, the young boy discovers that he doesn't need to feel embarrassed, because he's realized that size is no document. Meanwhile, Eddie is at home playing video games. Sheep lives in the town of Redshore with his parents and learns that he will be kicked out of his house if he doesn't complete a course by the end of the week. At this point, Eddie realizes he's in trouble and decides to start training with a coach he met on TV to try to find a direction in life. After cleaning his room, the sheep puts her video game away in the closet and, the next morning, begins a routine of healthy eating and intense physical exercise. For a week, he dedicates himself to building new habits and, at the end of this period, Eddie feels like a new man. Now he needs to get his school leaving certificate to present it to his mother, but the problem starts when he finds out that he has to pay $100 to receive it. Furious at feeling cheated, Eddie decides to go after the coach and, after finding out where Wishman lives, he rushes up the stairs to get to the mansion. However, upon meeting him, the sheep realizes that Gary still lives with his mother and discovers that he is not the great mentor he seemed to be on TV. In the end, Eddie gets his certificate for free and isn't kicked out of his house. However, instead of continuing to follow the routine he has built up, he ends up playing video games all night again, as he now has a friend to accompany him. When Rosita and Norman go out for a romantic dinner, Gunter is left in charge of looking after the children. However, as he's not used to babysitting, the pig ends up knocking over a jar full of sweets and suddenly all the children appear on the stairs. After devouring that huge amount of sugar, the little ones have plenty of energy left and decide to team up to trap Gunter with a ribbon. Furious, the pig manages to break free and chooses a song to encourage the children to dance. His aim is to get them to use up all the energy they've gained by eating sweets, so that the children will get sleepy and go back to bed. Luckily, his plan works as expected and the little ones fall asleep minutes later. The next challenge is to get them back into their beds, but Gunter manages to complete this mission just before the couple arrive home. When she enters the apartment, Rosita is impressed to see that everything is in order, but suddenly one of the children falls from the ceiling fan. At this point, Gunter ends up being unmasked and his career as a nanny comes to an end before it has even begun. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.